Today is episode 38 with Dr. B and the 17th Ask Dr. B show.
Welcome to the Harness Your ADHD Power podcast. If you're looking for a fresh perspective and actionable steps on hot topics from focus to follow through to self-management and more, you are in the right place. Welcome your host, innovative educator, coach, and psychotherapist, Dr. B.
Hey, DDers. I am so glad that you could join me today. We've got 4 great topics, so let's get to it. First, since you're on this journey with me, I want to applaud your courage straight away. Truly, it not only takes courage, but determination and commitment to yourself to get the training that you need to rise up and become the person you were intended to become. And it's worth every bit of time, effort, and energy that it takes. It really is. I want you to have the life that you want for yourself as much as any person can want something for another. I feel it's your birthright to have a happy and productive life. And just because you haven't had it up to now, it doesn't mean that you don't get to have it moving forward. And if you need some help developing your executive function skills and your ADHD strategies to give you that happier and more productive life, there's still time to enroll in the Adventures in Achievement program. Doors close tonight at 11:59. The website link is in the episode description. So, do you have a hard time expressing what you want and what you want to say? Maybe even forgetting your original question and asking something else completely different. It happens, and it's okay to send me follow-up emails for the Ask Dr. B and ask again or differently if your question wasn't fully addressed in an episode. No worries on that. I'm sure that we've all been there at one time or another. Asking your questions couldn't be easier now. Just click the link in the episode description on your mobile device or on my website where it says Ask Dr. B and ask away. And a bonus opportunity. You can ask Dr. B every week in the community group where I show up live for Q&A. If you want to participate and ask me questions there, please friend me on Facebook and then ask to join the group, the Harness Your ADHD Power community. It's a great place to celebrate your wins and to learn. And whether this is your first or your 38th time of listening to my show, you're going to hear me say time and time again that you are not what you do or don't do, that you're more than that we are not defective or less than as people, as human beings. We're just wired differently. And that difference doesn't have to be a bad thing. In fact, it isn't. Once you understand what activates you, how to sustain effort with the least amount of stress possible, and have a lot of new tools to live your best life. And it's my hope that you'll get some of what you need here. You know, I continue to ask you about your wins, and I encourage you to acknowledge and celebrate them every day because they matter. Every win that you acknowledge and celebrate with emotional authenticity is changing your neurology, meanings, and your mindset in a positive way. Seems like a great return on your time investment. So please don't shortchange yourself by thinking that it's pointless or stupid to reward yourself for things that you're supposed to do. That couldn't be further from the truth. Are you really going to wait until something huge happens to celebrate? Does that something huge happen every day? Probably not. But the kind of wins that I'm talking about do. And based on the feedback that I get from the students in my program, this regular practice of celebrating their wins is changing their lives. So what's it going to be for you today? Maybe you decided to adopt a plant and try your hand at trying to take care of something and help it to thrive. That's a win. Perhaps you're becoming more self-aware, which is helping you to make the changes that have eluded you for years. That's a win. Maybe you decided to practice self-regulation in your daily conversations, and instead of just blurting out whatever comes into your mind, you stop, pause, consider, and then act. That's certainly a win. You get the point. Celebrate all of them. And none of this half-hearted celebrating. Mean it. Exaggerate your emotions. Yes, wow, awesome. You want your acknowledgement and your celebration to register in your physiology. You know, many of us need a higher level of stimulation or intensity for things to register. So if that's you, give it to yourself and exaggerate your celebration so that you can actually feel it. Today's episode is all about answering the questions that you have about issues or challenges that you experience as an adult living with ADHD and offering you hope. How much time do we have? Not much. So let's get to it. Thanks to 4 listeners who have shared their questions with me on the topics of relationship development, self-acceptance, overcommitting, and parenting an ADHD child.
This podcast is sponsored by Pure Potential with Dr. B. You can head over to drbarbaracohen.com and find the podcast show notes, grade free content from Dr. B, plus programs and services. That's drbarbaracohen.com.
Now back to being an adult with ADHD in today's world. Thanks to Mario in North Carolina for the first question on the topic of relationship development. He shares and asks, relationship development seems to be hard because of some old codependent habits. For me, good communication has always been a problem with both of my wives. I seem to do okay with friends and relationships. Maybe it's the close, intimate ones that are important to me that are harder to work on. Good communication to me is having my feelings expressed in ways the other person can get what I'm trying to convey. Feelings have been hard to express in the past, and I'm doing a lot better now. I know in both my marriages I had problems shutting down when I felt hurt or pain from their comments or feelings that dredged up from the past. Is that an ADD problem, or do mainstream people have the same challenge? Thank you for your questions, Mario. The quick answer is that many people have communication and relationship challenges, whether they have ADHD or not. And those with ADHD and executive function issues have an even higher incidence of these challenges. Some of the reasons that those with ADHD have a more difficult time can come from the 3 core symptoms of ADHD. Imagine if you're really inattentive and continually miss what your loved one is saying because you check out and you're thinking about other things. How do you think that's going to affect the relationship? And what about the impact of being hyperactive or impulsive in your relationship? If you're constantly interrupting them or blurting out whatever comes into your mind, again, not great for the relationship. Or if your impulsivity is with spending and you create massive debt for the 2 of you, none of these are great for relationships. Separate from the 3 core symptoms of ADHD are the deficits of executive function that can negatively impact a relationship, and that can be true of someone with or without ADHD. Inability to get started or finish tasks that are your responsibility can lead to lots of disagreements or fights because you could be viewed as a child who needs to be monitored rather than an adult who can operate on their own. If I talk specifically about codependency behaviors, these are not solely the problem of those with ADHD. This impacts lots of people. However, I found that many of the adults with ADHD that I've worked with over the years do have issues with codependency that has negatively impacted their relationships because they've taught the people in their lives how to treat them or interact with them, and what they've taught others isn't positive or self-affirming. To turn things around, if we're just talking about what to do when you've taught loved ones to be in a codependent relationship with you, the first step is to address your own codependency behaviors and beliefs. Without taking that first step, nothing gets to change. By addressing your codependency behaviors, I mean first that you need to become more self-aware, which is an executive function skill. So if you aren't very self-aware yet, then the pre-step to addressing your codependency might be working on becoming more self-aware. As your self-awareness develops and you become more aware of your codependency behaviors, that's when you can be thinking about how you would like your relationships to be moving forward. And of course, you don't control your relationships, not both sides of them, and you can't guarantee that they're going to become that. You can only imagine what you'd like them to be and use that for a direction to move in. And having that direction to move in, you can ask yourself, what you need to develop in yourself in order to have non-codependent relationships with people. How do you have to shift your own beliefs and behaviors to achieve that? And from there, where will you start? Also, when it comes to being understood in a conversation, it's important first to seek to understand the other and then seek to be understood. If you don't understand the other person, where they're at, where they're coming from, or what things mean to them, you're going to be fighting a hard battle to be understood by them. When you understand them first, and then you think through how it is that you're going to express yourself with them in order to have them understand you, given what you know about them, it's going to make a huge difference. What I find very helpful when such huge changes are being made that impact others is to let the people in your life know that you're making these types of changes and that the ways that you used to behave aren't going to be the norm anymore. That way, you're letting others know in advance that things are going to be changing and they're going to be different. So when you arrive in a situation and you choose differently than in the past, they won't be shocked or confused. I hope what I've shared here will be of benefit to you as you're moving forward with your relationship development and your further healing of your codependent behaviors. Transitioning to our next topic. Thanks to Rita in California for the second question on the topic of self-acceptance. She asks, and she shared, "Not quite sure how to phrase this question or thought. Do you have any tips or thoughts on how to recover or not feel so bad or take it personally when random thoughts come out of your mouth during a conversation and people involved stare at you like you're an alien or unintelligent? Sometimes I share thoughts impulsively, and then they sound so airheady, and I feel embarrassed right after, and then I replay it in my head over and over. Ugh! I hear this is very distressing to you, Rita, and I can tell you some of what I've done in the past when experiencing similar situations. My favorite, after having blurted out or shared something not so great, is to own it and get rid of the elephant in the room that feels so awful. I've said things like, "That was pretty odd, wasn't it?" Or "That didn't make much sense, did it?" Or "Can you believe I just said that?" I prefer to call attention to it myself, acknowledging that I'm aware of what just happened rather than trying to hide or run away from what just happened. Usually people just laugh with me after I say whatever I say and it's over, instead of me ruminating over it and feeling stupid or like I need to crawl into a hole someplace, hoping that the ground is just going to just swallow me up. The deal is, whether others are judging you as harshly as you're judging you, aren't things that you can know. When I've asked friends about some of the silly things that I've said, they just said something like, "That's just you, no big deal." Now, maybe you don't want to be known as the person who does these things and is just accepted by people as she's just that way. However, you can work on the skill of self-regulation and impulse control, and you can learn to pause before you speak, to take a breath first and feel the breath, and then engage your mouth and your mind and say whatever you want to say mindfully instead of impulsively. You can train yourself to have this ability and this skill. It takes time and patience, and it's worth it, I think. In the meantime, I suggest that you treat yourself with lots of compassion, understanding, and love, because what is happening is an impulse that hasn't yet learned another way of expression, and it can. Replaying it over and over in your head is only training your mind to do more of the same, unfortunately, because what we focus on grows. And so if you focus on your so-called mistakes, you're going to generate more of them. I suggest that you address it boldly in the moment and then let it go if you can. Another piece here is to address the codependency stuff of being somewhat obsessed with what others are thinking. None of us can control what others think, whether it's what they think of us or think about things in general. What they think is what they think, and it's their right to think what they will, just the same as it's your right to think what you'll think. You could view it as their opinion or your opinion. And what's an opinion? It's a belief or judgment that rests on the grounds insufficient to produce complete certainty. It's someone's personal view or outlook. And is that something that's worth getting embarrassed about? So if you're embarrassed because of the imagined thoughts of others or because of the looks that you get from others, none of that can really harm you. What can harm you is the harsh judgment that you put on yourself about sounding airheady. Is that the person that you want to imagine yourself to be and continue to reinforce that to yourself? Especially since this is not who you are. On an identity level, it's how you behave sometimes, not even all the time. So consider that you're taking something that occurs sometimes and making it so big that it takes over your entire mindset about who you are and how you should feel about yourself, i.e., embarrassed. That's giving away a lot of power and control to a behavior that happens occasionally. I hope what I've shared here will be helpful to you in forgiving yourself and beginning to learn how to first accept and then train for a new behavior. Transitioning to our next topic. Thanks to Shoshana in New York for the third question on the topic of overcommitting. She asked and she shared, what are some helpful ways to not take on too much? I say yes, get overwhelmed, and then stressed out. Since I only have a little bit of information here, I'm going to do a little bit of guessing or assuming. Let's start at the beginning with the need to know how much you can take on or what to take on and what or when is too much. This information comes from being self-aware, which is part of the suite of executive function skills that I've been talking about recently. Without self-awareness and the knowledge that it brings, it seems like an impossible problem to solve. So let's assume that you are self-aware enough to know the answers to the questions that I just posed. You know what is too much and what is enough. The next place that I'd be looking is about your ability to say no to people who ask you to do something. If you're not comfortable saying no because you don't want to disappoint people or have them unhappy with you, then you're in the world of codependent behaviors and thinking here, that you're attending to the needs of others over your own, that you would rather hurt yourself by getting overwhelmed and stressed out than disappoint someone else. Funny thing is here, you're disappointing someone, and that someone is you. Every time you say yes to others, you're saying no to you. So the pre-step here is to not get overwhelmed and stressed by saying yes to whatever is asked of you. It's to learn to assert yourself and say no. In fact, most successful people say no much more often than they say yes, because they're focused on whether or not what they're saying yes to is going to be taking them further towards their goals. That means that you need to know what your goal is. And if it's to be relaxed and calm, then when someone asks you to do something, you need to ask yourself whether or not doing that thing for that person is going to allow you to continue to remain relaxed and calm. If the answer is yes, then you have the option of saying yes. If the answer is no, then the decision is already pretty much made for you if you're going to honor your needs and your goal of remaining relaxed and calm. Criteria like this is a great way to make good decisions for yourself because you've already done the important work ahead of time. I hope what I've shared here will help you to know where to start in order to reduce your feelings of overwhelm and stress. Transitioning to our next topic. Thanks to Chicago Mom in Illinois for the fourth question on the topic of parenting an ADHD child. She shared and asks, I've become an avid listener of your podcast. Thank you so much. It's become a tool as a parent with a child that has ADHD. I have many questions because we've just begun the journey. My question is, how can I best serve my 9-year-old child on her journey? Any resources that you may have are greatly appreciated. You know, one of the greatest gifts I think that a parent can give their child, in addition to unconditional love and acceptance, is to help them learn and master executive function skills. Childhood is the time that these skills are initially being learned, and the opportunities for learning and mastery should be occurring both in the school environment as well as at home. These skills are best learned in a loving and non-judgmental space, kind of with a scaffold learning approach. What I mean by that is supportive and layered learning approach, kind of the equivalent to learning to ride a two-wheeler bike with training wheels first, then the wheels raised up a bit, but still there, and then finally with the training wheels removed. The support's only there when it's needed, so the necessary risks can be taken to grow. Many of the executive function skills don't fully develop until much older than your child. However, she can begin to learn them and master them as much as she's able to at this time. Certainly mastering one's feelings, meaning learning about self-regulation, self-control, mental agility, and a few others, are certainly key. As a child moves from childhood through puberty into the next phase of life, there are so many changes. Physically, mentally, and emotionally, so much to be regulated. Often kids feel very dysregulated, and so these skills can help them a lot to feel more balanced and secure rather than feeling like they're on a runaway train. There are also some skills that come from DBT, or dialectical behavior therapy, such as mindfulness and distress tolerance, that can be quite beneficial to learn during this time. Mindfulness is the basis of all the skills of DBT. Distress tolerance is the ability to navigate or endure or handle experiences that are distressing and not become overwhelmed or have a meltdown. One of the important points in teaching executive function skills is to not step in too soon to help the child because you do them a disservice. You disempower them rather than empower them. Instead, cueing the child to help them remember the sequence and get back to what they were doing before they got derailed or distracted is what is most helpful in the long run. And if you haven't learned or mastered these skills yourself, you might consider learning about them as well as learning whatever you're missing so that you can be supportive of your child's learning process when she gets specialized help through the school or other places. I hope what I've shared will be helpful and give you some direction and support to help your child and yourself during this transition time. So that's it for our 4 topics and questions for today. I'd like to take a few minutes and shift our attention over to the executive function skills again and provide you with a quick overview of them, since I've been weaving them into my answers and solutions today. These are the skills that we need to develop for a more successful adult life, especially if we didn't develop them starting back in childhood. We need to learn them because they're the foundational skills that we build a successful adult life on, with greater ability to successfully navigate the responsibilities that come with adulthood. So learning and mastering them is absolutely essential from my point of view. So here's a quick overview of what each of them is and what you can do to begin to strengthen each one. Mental flexibility, what it is. It allows you to learn from your mistakes and to change your approach to a task, to not be rigid in how you live life. What you can do to strengthen mental flexibility. Practice patience while learning about something new. Be open-minded about not knowing right away how it is that something works. You're learning. Practice learning something new by trial and error. Allow yourself to try something and fail, and take what you learned from the failed attempt into the next attempt with a higher possibility of success. Work on your beliefs about making mistakes until you can get comfortable with making them. It's got to be okay to make mistakes so that you can learn from them. Take your time in new situations so that you can learn about them and integrate the new information with previous information so you can come up with a new learning or a new insight. And you can train with cognitive apps such as Peak Pro, specifically on mental agility. Focus. What is it? This allows you to start a task without hesitation or procrastination and maintain your attention and effort until you complete the task, even with lots of distractions around. What you can do to strengthen focus. Find and focus on something of interest in the task to be completed and then stay focused on what's interesting to you so that you can stay with it until it's completed. Choose an activity that will require your full attention and practice it often, such as a sport with others or a musical instrument as part of a group. And again, training with cognitive apps such as Peak Pro, specifically on focus. Organization. What is it? This allows you to create order out of disorder, to see the patterns and the sequences, to collect everything that you need to complete a task, and to be able to step back with perspective, to see the entire situation and make sure that you have everything that you need. It's important for problem solving, goal setting, and it supports time management. Here's what you can do to strengthen organization. Find something in your life that is naturally or easily organized by you, and use that as a model for what to do in other situations. Get help learning to break down tasks into smaller ones and learning to see the organizational flow in the smaller ones that's there also in the larger task. Using calendars or organizers is fine, so long as you have the ability to actually use them. And then again, training with cognitive apps such as Peak Pro, and focus on how each training game is organized to achieve its goals. Planning. What is it? This allows you to develop strategies to accomplish goals. It's taking the time before starting a task to think it through and to know that you're competent to start and finish the task. It also includes noting how realistic the goal is, having the foresight to see possible obstacles to achieving the goal, and planning for alternative ways to achieve that goal. What you can do to strengthen planning. Practicing and improving foresight is important to effective planning skills. Create a checklist for something long-term or larger than the immediate, and then go over it with a friend to see that you've considered everything in the plan and the list. Plan an outing, and then go on the outing and see if what you planned and included everything that you needed to have for a successful trip. Learn from the experience. And again, training with cognitive apps such as Peak Pro and planning how you will approach the training game rather than just jumping in and doing it without a plan. Self-awareness. What it is. This allows you to accurately judge your own performance, behavior, and skills, to be aware of yourself from outside of yourself, what the impact of your actions is on others. It helps you to learn from your mistakes, to accept criticism and listen and understand the feelings of others. What you can do to strengthen self-awareness. Practice making predictions and seeking if your predictions are close to what the outcome is. What's going to happen if? Express yourself aloud and hear what you're thinking, rather than just thinking inside yourself. Get ready to engage in an activity in advance and prepare by anticipating what is needed to show up intentionally to have the experience be what you want it to be, rather than whatever it is. And again, training with cognitive apps such as Peak Pro, and pay attention to your self-awareness as you train. Self-control. What is it? This allows you to control your feelings and behaviors in order to make good decisions while also dealing with impulsive urges and frustrations. It's the ability to not take an action until you've engaged your thinking and decided that it is the right or appropriate action to take. It's the ability to stop, think, and then act, rather than impulsively act first and regret it afterwards. What you can do to strengthen self-control. Practice stop and go often. Time yourself and get yourself to honor the timer and the purpose of practicing stop and go. Practice with others, stop and go, and take turns and reading social cues of timing. Practice working with your own frustration and tolerating the distress that it might be causing. Training with cognitive apps again, such as Peak Pro, specifically on self-control, which includes many of the training games. Time management. What is it? This allows you to adapt to prioritizing tasks and completing things in a timely fashion because you understand the passing of time and you're aware of its passing. It refers to sticking to a schedule once you've planned and scheduled something, and that you've accurately estimated the time that things are going to take you. What you can do to strengthen time management. Reward yourself for getting right to something and completing it. Time yourself for parts of tasks so you can estimate more accurately what the total task might take. And again, training with cognitive apps such as Peak Pro, specifically on time management, since they're timed. Working memory. What is it? This allows you to remember and use relevant information when you're in the middle of learning something new. The ability to hold on to something that's known while you're learning something new and then integrating them. It also allows you to remember what you were about to do when you leave the situation for a moment to go do something else. What you can do to strengthen working memory. Practice remembering the first piece of information while learning a new piece and then recalling the original piece of information. Practice rehearsing, chunking to build strength with working memory. And again, training with cognitive apps such as Peak Pro, specifically on working memory. They have some great training tools for this. I hope this brief summary helps you to have a basic understanding of what these skills are. As to the high cost of not knowing about them and acquiring them, I hope I've been able to show you how not pursuing the learning and the mastery of these skills is going to stand in your way for so many things that you want to do in your life and make them much more difficult to try and achieve or just do because these are missing skills. I want to thank Mario, Rita, Shoshana, and Chicago Mom for your questions for the Ask Dr. B format today. A favorite quote. George Bernard Shaw said, "The single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place." The question I have for you at this point of our journey together is, are you willing to seek to understand the other first before you seek to be understood by them? I hope so. It'll make a world of difference in your relationships with others and with yourself. So that's about it. New episodes are released on Mondays and Thursdays. As a subscriber, the newest episode will be in your feed by 1 a.m. Pacific time. Plus, you won't miss out on anything special that I create. Certainly a great reason to subscribe. Please share this podcast with your friends and family, as well as rate the show if you're finding it valuable. And if you'd like to do a little bit more, I would really be grateful if you wrote a thoughtful review on iTunes. You don't have to write anything lengthy. Just a line or two would be great. I do love hearing from you, reading your reviews, learning about your life, and how the show is benefiting you and those you care about. It continues to mean a lot to me to know that your life is getting a little bit better every time we get together. Whether you're also learning from my live videos, the community group, my online program, or one-to-one, I'm here to serve your needs, and it's an honor to accompany you on your journey and make a difference in the quality of your life. A quick reminder, enrollment closes tonight at 11:59 for the Adventures in Achievement online program. That's the place to be if you want help understanding what's been holding you back and you want to learn the skills to break free of your stuckness. There's still some spots available and time to check it out and get enrolled. After tonight, enrollment's going to be closed until late 2017. So you still have time. That is, if that's of interest to you. So that is it for today. Be sure to take advantage of all the free resources that I've created. All the resource links are in the episode description, including the show notes. Thanks for listening. Until the next time, bye for now.
Thanks for your undivided attention. If you're hungry to make positive changes in your life, head over to drbarbaracohen.com and see how Dr. B can help you today. Whether you love making changes with one-to-one attention and community support, or on your own with self-study, or could benefit from coaching or psychotherapy, you'll find all the information right there at drbarbaracohen.com.